Hello, Tom Levecki here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. Listen, I did an important podcast yesterday with the legendary Dee Snider, who is adamant about getting AC/DC on the halftime show, challenging Jay-Z, and as well as challenging Roger Goodell of the NFL. So go back to my last podcast, check out what's cooking there, and sign the petition. This guest is I've been excited to have on. We've been chatting for a while. Shane Callahan, he's an awesome actor, an up-and-coming actor on the Hulu show Reprisal. And those who do listen to the podcast, which is greatly appreciated. I love having actors on nowadays, especially those who are mastering the craft, and Shane is no exception. With that being said, Shane Callahan, welcome to New Theory Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing, Tom? Thanks for having me, man.
I'm well. So I'm always a little fascinated, especially, with actors, actresses, in the current environment, because I think it's a double-edged sword. And those who listen, I'll probably repeat myself, where if I want to do something now and I want to kind of get into the game, the barriers to entry are super low, vis-a-vis if I could get my YouTube going or TikTok nowadays and other stuff. So there's ways to kind of gain celebrity without acting, which I think is a great thing. The bad thing is that you get really shitty actors, and it's like, oh, wait a second, like they get put on shows because they have a social media following, and I think it kind of hurts the craft. So before we launch in and learn about you, I'd love to hear about what your thoughts are on like the modern state of affairs for acting.
Well, I mean, I think, with social media and people, I mean, anything that can, any way to get a job, as long as, you're not hurting anybody is cool with me, but
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
I've definitely, I'm a little detached from the social media aspect somewhat. So I might do it I've been doing it the other way around somewhat. And I'm learning more about social media as I'm going along, because it's a whole new beast, as it's like even a different talent. I think, it's a different muscle, everything about it. And
True.
And I thought being an introvert, I'd feel okay doing it, but it actually stresses me out more. Because it's like I'm talking to the whole world, or at least 7 people, but regardless, it still feels just as intimidating to me.
Love it. So why'd you get into acting? Give us, why'd you get into acting, and when did you first catch the bug?
When's my first what?
When did you first get into acting, and when did you first catch the bug?
Well, I first got into it with before I was into it really, I acted in short films I made in school, but only the ones where my actors didn't show up. So which happened. So I just filled in, but I wasn't really I was reluctant about that. I didn't like the fact that I had to do it then. But my parents talked me into taking an acting class when I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, back in this would be like the mid-90s. And I did made some friends there, and we went out and did a play. They talked me into auditioning for a play in town, which was 3 one-acts. And Sean Mitchell, one of the playwrights, afterwards said, we were the only 3 actors that showed up to the audition. So we all got the part, and thought that was and then, but doing that play, one of them, like I'm talking about inanimate objects, and as if they're real people, and the fact that there was an audience response from all of that, of doing such a bizarre play, I really, really dug that medium in it, and I got a rush out of that. So I would say theater is when I caught the bug early on.
Love it. And as I mentioned, like social media and stuff, also like with I'm old, and growing up, it was kind of like 3 channels, at least in New York, it was, ABC, NBC, CBS, and then your local New York stations, WPIX and Channel 9, WOR TV. So, if, let's just say you were an actor and you want to make it meaningfully at the time, obviously it was movies, which was hard to do. And then obviously only a certain set of stations, and then cable came around, and Sopranos kind of, blew the door wide open for for, cable and stuff. So you add another maybe 30, 40 channels. But now it's not even just channels, about networks. You got Netflix, you got Amazon, you got Hulu, Vudu, and so forth. And they're all investing in original content because they have to, which I think presents a great opportunity for serious actors. So your show, Reprisals on Hulu. Why don't you talk a little bit about the show, what it's about, and where you fit in?
Well, it's a really killer show, man. It's a story of vengeance, and it centers around Abigail Spencer's character, who really kicks ass in the show. Her character, Doris, was done wrong by her brother, who's a member of a gang called the Banished Brawlers. And back in the day, they did something really bad to her, and she lived through it. And years later, she reinvents herself and changes her hair, her image, and everything. And she's seeking revenge upon her brother in this gang called the Banished Brawlers. And then that's the kind of like center driving focus. But you meet all these cool, fun Coen Brothers like characters along the way, and unsuspecting, villains and unsuspecting heroes, and fun dialogue. And I'm a member of the gang, the Banished Brawlers. I play a character named Brew, and we're kind of coasting at the beginning of the show, coasting by the means of like we just been dominating the circuit for a while, and by circuit, the world is kind of like this, dystopian version of the current world we live in. Like it's kind of like a fantasy land of where we are at now, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, these guys rule the roost, and then they did something in the past, and it's kind of I'm not done with the series. I don't give too much away, but it looks like it kind of comes to bite them in the ass later on.
Yeah. It's I mean, there's it's pretty cool. Like in the it's, as like with the the different like the the way that people evolve throughout it. Like I really love the aspect of like the heroes that are created, and at least from her angle, from Abigail Spencer's character's angle, her friends and the hero that she comes across, and how unsuspectingly badass they end up being. Expect it from the start, and then the gang, we just kind of dominated, and for over a decade now, and then so everything's pretty easy going, and we're just making a bunch of money, and then she comes in and just wreaks havoc upon the whole world, and it's exciting to know where it could go from here, because the Brawlers are they're pretty ruthless. They're a ruthless gang, and so but we don't get to see how ruthless they actually can be, and it's kind of exciting to know where it can go from here with everything that she does.
Well, what it is, and when you see shows like this, and you're rooting for the protagonist, so hopefully she gets her revenge, but then you don't always see how these guys got where they got, and it's generally through somewhat ruthless means. So when they kind of get challenged again, it goes back to those roots, and that's where what makes Reprisal special. All right, so let's do a plug for the show, because I want people to check it out. I'll put a link to the bottom. Where, I know it's on Hulu, but where exactly, what's the easiest way to find it, and how can people check it out?
Well, all 10 episodes are on Hulu, and right now you can binge out, take a weekend and watch them all. And it's a fun binging show.
Love it.
Just go to Hulu. It should show up in their original, on the tabs of their originals. And if not, just do a search for Reprisal. One word.
Love it. And the cool thing about it is Hulu, I think it's partially owned by Disney, and as one of the earlier streamers, they have been investing. I love them for the horror genre. It's not my go-to streamer, but it's becoming it because of the original content like Reprisal, as well as like the horror and certain genres I just feel are stronger. And Shane, how can we find you? I know you're not a social media maven per se, but how can we find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram _Shane _Callahan _ and
love it.
And that's the best. That's probably the one I'm learning. That's the muscle I'm learning the most, at least right now. And,
awesome, Shane. Thank you for being on the New Theory podcast. And folks, check out Reprisal on Hulu.